Buenas. This Committee on Rules, the meeting is hereby called back to order at 12:54 Chamorro Standard Time. The Court Director, Ms. Cameron Nelson, will now call the roll of members.
Chairperson Senator Barnett.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Senator Perez. Speaker Terlahi. Vice Speaker Munya Barnes. Senator Shelton. Senator Parkinson. Senator Kanata. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Nicolas. Senator Brown. Senator Duenas. Senator Fisher. Senator Taitigui. Mr. Chair, there is a quorum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nelson. On the motion to excuse members not present, Vice Chair?
So moved.
All right, no objection, motion carries. Can you do a motion to add Rezos? Yeah. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Notwithstanding House rules, I move to place Resolution 408-37 COR onto our core agenda. Is that?
Yeah. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries.
I also move to place Resolution 409-37 COR onto our core agenda.
Thank you. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries.
Oh, I thought this was... Sure.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Speaker Terlahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move to adopt resolution number 408 by the Committee on Rules.
Okay, on the motion to adopt resolution number 408-37 COR, is there any objection?
Just clarification, Mr. Chair, so we're going to discuss it as well, correct?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, if there's anyone who cares to discuss it, this would be the time.
So if we can get the speaker to introduce the purpose of adopting this resolution.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Speaker Terlahi?
Okay, so resolution 408 is to allow the legislature, it's going to authorize the Committee on Rules chairperson to hire a lawyer and appropriate some money in here to pay that lawyer to represent the legislature in the United States Supreme Court and to file a response to the Attorney General's petition for writ of certiorari as requested by the Supreme Court of the United States. So this council hopefully will, that our brief is due according to the Supreme Court of the United States. Both the governor's and the legislature's briefs are due in July 8th? July 8th. So it's just a short amount of time, and this would hopefully get a lawyer. We can get a lawyer in time, and we get them to brief us on what options we have in responding to the petition that has been filed by the Attorney General of Guam, and that we move forward in responding as requested by the Supreme Court. So the underlying case was, this was a case brought by the governor in the Guam Supreme Court, a declaratory judgment case. And so now the Attorney General has put before the United States Supreme Court this question. Whether the Supreme Court of Guam's advisory opinion constitutes a permissible exercise of the judicial authority that Congress has vested in that court under 48 U.S.C. 1424A1, the Organic Act. So he's asking them an Organic Act question, so we would like to be briefed and decide how to move forward. That's my motion.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. Senator Duenas?
So I know we debated this in a prior court meeting, and so now that I'm understanding the governor's office has now also responded as being asked by the Supreme Court as well to come forward and basically provide their position before they were doing what we were doing, what we decided to do, which was to basically stay out of it in layman's terms. But now that we've been compelled, I would say that my condition on voting on this personally is that I put clearly on the record that it will be subject to the reconvening of the Rules Committee when the legal brief is prepared, and subject to adoption, approval and adoption.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. And noted. Senator Teidigui?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with my colleague, Senator Dueñas, with regards to the ability for us to vote on whatever decision is made. And if I'm not mistaken, the courts have asked us to chime in on this decision, or our opinion on the question. But from what I gather, this resolution is discussing about whether the Attorney General has the right to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. So I'm getting two conflicting situations here. Are we going to decide whether to allow the Attorney General to, we agree that he should go to the U.S. Supreme Court to seek, an appeal? Or are we here to discuss the question of, according to the resolution, there was 3 questions asked, and the U.S. Supreme Court declined to answer Governor Leon Guerrero's first question, stating that the Attorney General has moved to
Sorry, Senator. The Guam. You're talking about the Guam Supreme Court now. So you're talking about the underlying questions, the
Right.
underlying Guam Supreme Court decision
3.
on those questions.
right,
That
has no
that's
relevance
not,
to this.
Well, it's not presented. The only question that the AG has presented to the U.S. Supreme Court is whether the Supreme Court of Guam's advisory opinion constitutes a permissible exercise of the judicial authority that Congress has vested in that case under the Organic Act.
to allow the
Whether they can give advisory opinions under these circumstances. That's the question. Whether the Guam Supreme Court can give advisory opinions. And why this piqued my interest was because they're giving advisory opinions supposedly pursuant to the statute that the legislature created. Now, I think there may be a dispute, that's why I'd like a lawyer to brief us, is whether they are following our statute or they're not. And the AG might be arguing that they're not even following our statute and that they should not have had jurisdiction to weigh in with an advisory opinion in this case. But those I think we will be briefed on before our brief is
Point
filed.
of information, Mr. Chair.
Senator Dueñas?
Yes, I think just so that we are using our own language or nomenclature that we usually use for this. So this is basically the Attorney General of Guam saying that the law passed by this body allowing for declaratory judgments at the Supreme Court. In his question then is these advisory opinions, I would imagine he's questioning whether or not it's organic, whether the Organic Act allows for that type of practice, or should it be the legislature and the executive branch hashing it out until they come to a decision. And so, I mean, while many of us in this body and other bodies may have a difference of opinion in terms of whether or not declaratory judgment is a durable and good law, I think that at this point, since we've been invited, that's the substance of the case that the Attorney General brought and is bringing is not what's in question here. It is the actual legal proceedings. And so I think that actually I would be curious as well, because that would lead us also in the future of understanding, whether or not we should repeal this law if the Supreme Court of the United States of America said this is a non-Organic Act practice, right, even though the legislature had passed such legislation and the governor signed off and it became a public law, and then we would know from there going forward. But this seems to be on its face a discussion of first and foremost whether or not the legislature of Guam passes laws, and we did that in some of the other arguments. And the second is now if we pass a law and our Attorney General, the Chief Legal Officer, decides that he believes that it's inorganic, that the place to shop that to would be to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then subsequent matters will be decided on the merits.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Titlegy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank my colleague for explaining that. The importance of declaratory judgment in the Guam law right now is it's in the code. It's actually law today, declaratory judgments. And of course, we had it once upon a time. It was actually repealed and then brought into. I think, the law is clear what we can do, but, like my good colleague mentioned, being able to go to the U.S. Supreme Court to define whether a declaratory judgment is organic or if it can move forward. We know that other jurisdictions do not have declaratory judgments. They have appeals, the process of appeals. So I don't want to see any opportunity that would allow, or a hindrance that would not allow somebody to have the ability to go to the U.S. Supreme Court for an appeal. So I'm just concerned about that, and I want to ensure that the discussion, once we have our attorney in play, that there is a discussion and a voting on how we're going to move forward. So I thank you for the opportunity.
If there's no one else with any discussion on the issue, there was a motion to adopt resolution number 408-37 COR. So on the motion, is there any objection? Hearing none, motion passes. Speaker Terlahi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to move that we adopt resolution number 409-37 COR. And this is to authorize legislative counsel or other retained counsel to represent the legislature in the Superior Court of Guam. This might be Supreme Court of Guam. Supreme Court of Guam. The title says Superior Court of Guam. Superior Court, I would amend this verbally to say, or Supreme Court of Guam. I think it's Supreme Court. They're in the Supreme Court of Guam in Government of Guam et al. Versus Cortec International Civil Case CV 1198-18. So this case is Government of Guam and GWA versus Cortec. It's regarding ownership of the property where the water well sits near Ukadu. And very complex case. There have been some decisions made in this case in the Superior Court of Guam, and some of those decisions are being appealed right now to the Supreme Court of Guam, even though the entire case is not finished in the Superior Court. So there's certain issues that are being appealed in the Supreme Court, and so this would allow us to, again, get counsel in this case where we're talking about the Northern District Wastewater Treatment Plant, and help us to determine whether to enter and how to proceed in this case. We talked about it at the last meeting that what's at stake is this wastewater treatment plant, and we have been given a quote, or GWA has been given a quote that to purchase that treatment plant back from Cortec would be about $220 million, or that's the estimate that they put out there. But what piqued my interest in this case again was if there's not a final determination, but if they determine that property was transferred without legislative approval, I believe the legislature should assert its position that property, according to all of our statutes, cannot be transferred in Guam without legislative approval. Property of the Government of Guam. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. Senator Duenas.
So once again, in this matter, I concur, and so I just wanted to get a further clarification from the speaker that what the intent is, the direction of the council that we would be obtaining would be to do research on all the laws pertaining to this matter, and to demonstrate whether or not, based on Guam law, I believe there was 3 laws, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but 3 public laws and statute that clearly define what's going on with this particular property in prior legislatures. And so we would be submitting those findings as an amicus brief, and we are not necessarily taking a position except for the position that if the laws of Guam that are currently on the books state that there has not been a transfer and these are the law of the land in terms of what exists on the books in public law, then that's what we would be presenting. Okay, so I'm fine with that. I have no objections to this resolution.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Is there anyone else with any discussion on this resolution? If not, there was a motion to adopt it, but could...
Okay. All right. Yeah, Mr. Chair, before we adopt that motion, I'd like to make a motion to amend the title and the body where we are asking to enter Superior Court of Guam, that it be the Supreme Court of Guam or the Superior Court of Guam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On that motion, is there any objection? Hearing none, motion carries.
On 409. No,
On 409, yes.
that was on my amendment.
Okay, yes, so that's to amend the resolution 409-37 to say in the Superior, or, yeah, yes. And so now there's a motion to adopt the resolution with Senator Taitigui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it was mentioned earlier that, from the speaker when explaining this resolution, that some of the parts, it's still ongoing in the Superior Court of Guam, and now it's going to the Supreme Court of Guam with regards to some appeals. The appeals part, is that what we are discussing on, what is being appealed, or the case itself? Because you're saying we're incorporating Superior now, and it's an and/or, right? So can you explain this resolution that we are adopting in order to hire an attorney to represent the legislature based on, our codified into law Title 21, 60112, that requires the legislature to authorize any sale of property or transfer to property. Is that what we're talking about here, or is it something else other than that? So in other words, our attorney is going to represent this body as, on our behalf, explaining the right and that we have as a body to transfer land based on 21-60012. Is that what we're only going after, and what is in the Superior Court of Guam that we may have to address?
Well, I think because some of the issues have been raised to the Supreme Court, we need to address those right away. And I think there's been a briefing schedule for the actual parties. We would be amicus, but if it just depends, I guess, what happens at the Supreme Court. If they remand that with certain parameters back to the Superior Court, I think the legislature's interest might still be, that we might still want to assert our interests when they're making that determination as well.
What does the Attorney General have a part to play in any of this?
That's a great question, but I can't remember. Yeah. So I think the AG is representing the government of Guam. So the case caption reads, Government of Guam, Michael J.B. Borja in his capacity as Director of Land Management, plaintiff versus Guam Waterworks Authority, Guam Public Corporation, Plaintiff Intervenor versus Cortec International Corporation, Unix Enterprises Corporation Defendants. So yes, the GWA has litigation counsel, and Government of Guam, I believe, is represented by the Attorney General or the Department of Land Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Taidugu. Senator Dueñas?
Yeah, just a further point of clarification. This case is receiving a great amount of attention, and I've been notified, and I think many other members have, that the PUC, Public Utilities Corporation of Guam, will also be entering in and filing an amicus brief.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas.
I believe they're pending to adopt a resolution to do so.
Okay, so there's a motion to adopt Resolution 409-37 COR. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. All right. That's it. Thank you, colleagues. Could I get a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you. There's been a motion to adjourn. There's no objection. Meeting is adjourned at 1:15 Chamorro Standard Time. Sidus Masi Esta Adios.